Hi guys, and welcome to part 4 of my Ring review series. You'll find all my other Ring reviews in my Ring playlist. This time out I'm covering Ring 2, which was the second attempt at doing a sequel to 1998 Ring. So in my previous video I covered Spiral, which was the first attempt, but it wasn't a successful movie, it wasn't well received, so they decided to have a do-over, and hence here we are with Ring 2. I'm just relieved that they didn't call the initial attempt at a sequel Ring 2, because then we'd be in a situation where Ring 2 would be the abandoned sequel, whereas an oddly titled thing called Spiral would be the accepted sequel, which would make the whole situation even more confusing than it already is. I do approve of the idea of the do-over. As much as I enjoyed Spiral for the most part, it goes really off the wall towards the end, introduces these concepts which are just way too much for this series. You know, characters being resurrected, Sadako wandering around, speaking through somebody else's body. It's just too much. It's too wild. So I kind of approve, I guess, of this redoing of the Ring sequel. They could have done what they did with Nightmare on Elm Street, which is to just press on and do a part 3 as best they could, because part 2 of Nightmare on Elm Street really broke all the rules and it just didn't really make a whole lot of sense after the first movie. But doing it this way, absolutely fine, and I'm pleased to say that this is a much better attempt at a sequel. It's mostly the same story, but it just finishes things off better. It doesn't go too off the rails. So once again, we're following the character of Mei. She's investigating the death of her boyfriend, Ryuji. Am I saying that better? It's not Ryuji, is it? Is Ryuji a better way to go? So she's investigating that, and in the process she gets help from a motley band of characters, a random journalist, a cop, a strange scientist, all sorts of people. But Mei is the main character. All those other people, they sort of pop in and out of the story and assist her from time to time. We've also got Reiku coming back from the first movie. She wasn't in Spiral. They sort of pulled a Hicks and Newt and killed her off at the start of the story. But this time around, she's in it, albeit not for too long. In fact, the actress's appearance here is described as a special appearance, although she is in quite a few scenes. I've got to say, I wasn't sure that it was her at first. I was looking at her on the screen thinking, is that a different actress that they've cast? Because her hair's quite different, you see. So I had to look it up just to make sure, but it's pretty cool that it is actually her, and this second attempt at a sequel is definitely better for having that actress in it. Her name is Nanako Matsushima, and I was very impressed with her in the 1998 Ring film. And I've got to say, I'm impressed with what they've done with this movie in terms of story, because when they came to this a year after the 98 Ring, they knew what was well received about that film. They knew about the elements that really worked, the things that had scared people, you know, Sadako coming out of the well and the videotape. And I guess it would have been really tempting to just copy that stuff, but slightly different. But they haven't. They've not done another videotape. I don't think we even get a videotape scene this time around. They haven't done Sadako coming out of TVs and all sorts of this, that and the other in an attempt to try and recapture that former glory. They've just concentrated on telling a fairly logical second story to what we already got. Because I tell you what, if I'd have been in charge of writing this film, I probably would have thought, oh, let's have Sadako coming out of the microwave or the PS5, or have her coming out of everywhere. And I definitely would have had another videotape with some cool new images. So I guess that's why I'm not a film writer ultimately. This film does a very good job of creating some brand new scary situations and creepy moments. Right from the off, actually, the very first scene in this, which is not a kill scene, it takes place in a mortuary, and there's a coroner who basically studies Sadako's remains and comes to the conclusion that she was probably alive for about 30 years before she died. And let me tell you, I was gobsmacked the minute those words came out of his mouth, because I just found that to be an unbelievable concept. Now, for many, many years, the only version of Ring that I'd seen was the American version. In that one, Sadako is only alive for a week before she dies. Now, I found that frightening enough as it was, the idea that somebody could be alive in a well for a whole week, be starving to death, and they'd know that they were never getting out. I mean, for me, that would be a terrifying enough situation to generate the amount of hate needed for that girl to then become this crazily powerful post-death supernatural entity, because that's what this whole series is, isn't it? It's somebody who had such a horrific death in this well that they were then able to become some kind of crazy demon or demigod or whatever, and have all this power via the videotapes. It's similar to what you get in Silent Hill with the little girl Alessa, who was burned at the stake because of this crazy cult's bizarre beliefs, and because this girl went through such a horrific time, you know, getting burned and scalded, so much pain, so much agony, that allowed her to then become this like demigod persona. You know, it's like she had a bar of hate, the hate-o-meter, if you like, and the hate-o-meter got full, and thus she was able to become what she became. It's similar with Sadako in the Ring series. The hate-o-meter in the well got so full that she was then able to become the videotape Sadako that we know from these films. But I felt that it was more than enough when I was watching the American version, that this could have happened with 1 week spent living in the well. So the idea that in this version she could live for 30 years, I mean, that's mental. Could somebody even survive that long in a well? I guess she wouldn't be lacking for water, and if there were like little holes in the bottom of the well where rats could come in constantly, I guess that could be a food supply. But just imagine how dirty that water would end up becoming. I mean, after a few days of toileting in that water, I mean, it would be disgusting. It would be awful. Just have one pee in that well, and that water's not going to be very nice. So the idea that somebody could survive for 30 years in that, it's not entirely believable. Divide the number 30 by 10 to get 3. And I could possibly believe that somebody might survive for 3 years, albeit they would be getting gradually sicker and more feeble over time. But yet 30 is a little bit of overkill. But the thing is, it's not the number 30 that's the freaky thing at the start of this movie. It's the grey-haired guy's reaction to it. Because when he hears the coroner say those words, his face really sells it. I mean, it's something, because he's not just processing what he's hearing. Remember, this is a character who has got quite the connection to Sadako, because he knew her when she was a little girl. But it's a great way to kick off the movie, just the idea of this extended stay in the well. And then not long after that, we get this scene where Mei goes to Reiku's apartment and discovers these charred remains in the shower. There's like a moulded, burned videotape in these like ashes. It looks like the shape of a human being. And at first I thought to myself, oh, this is Reiku's second death after her car crash in Spiral, but she turns up alive later on, and so does her boy. So I'm not even sure that this is actually like the remains of a dead body that you see in the shower. It could just be like Sadako's artwork or something, but it's a very good moment and some really good art effects that they've done there in the shower. And I'm going to name one more genuinely scary scene in this. So second half of the movie, Mei goes to the island, and the ghost of Sadako's mum turns up, and Sadako herself in the same room. They're just going about their business. This would be quite unsettling as it is, but what makes it doubly so is the fact that they're reenacting a scene that we've already seen from the videotape in the first movie. So the mum's looking in the mirror, the little girl's looking in her mirror, and it's freaky as. I mean, I could feel the goose flesh popping up on my arms. The ending is a marked improvement from what we got with Spiral, as I've already hinted at. I love the swimming pool setup at the end of this. It definitely gave me vibes of It Follows. The lighting around the pool is perfect. I love all the equipment that the scientist has brought along, although it must have cost him a bomb to have all that shipped over from the mainland in the space of 24 hours. Scientists in Japan must be very handsomely paid. And I'm about to go into spoilers for what happens at the finale of this. So if you don't want to know what happens at the end of Ring 2, then now's your chance to scarper. 3, 2, 1. So the death of the scientist, that's where I'm going to go next. I love it. I love how you just see him coming towards the water with no indication as to what's going on with him. The best kill of this film. Not that there's that many of them, come to think of it. I'm not so keen on the death of the grey-haired guy whose character name is just not going to come to me. It's a bit weird how he would choose now to commit suicide after all these years. Though I guess the knowledge that Sadako was in the well for 30 years has probably set him along this path, and he's been on it pretty much from the beginning of the movie. There comes a moment in the swimming pool scene where things threaten to go as crazy as they did in Spiral, and I was panicking for a minute. I refer to the moment when suddenly May and the little boy are basically teleported to the well, or maybe it's like a dream world they've gone to or whatever. But as soon as that happens in this, I was in a little bit of a panic. I was like, no, what are you doing? You're going to end up resulting in the need for a third do-over. But if this is a little bit of a wacky thing to happen in the middle of the swimming pool scene, the film does recover from it for the most part quite well, because I love the clay version of Sadako. It's very freaky. And then we get a really cool sting in the tail with the journalist going crazy in the mental asylum just to finish things off. So the finale is 90% good stuff and 10% wacky ideas, but I can live with a ratio like that. It's not just all crazy like at the end of Spiral. The fact that we're back at the island at the end of this film, though, and the well, it does leave me thinking, okay, are they going to overuse these locations as the series goes on? Is this going to be the series version of the Myers house from Halloween? Are we going to have lots of new directors coming in to do the various requels and sequels and thinking to themselves, oh, we've got to go back to the island, got to go back to the well. That's where the true horror of Ring is. That's what we've got to do with our next story. Are we going to get that? I mean, I can forgive this film because it's still quite early days here. We're only on the 4th film out of a total of 14, I think. Plus, if May didn't go to the island in this, we wouldn't get the cool scene with the mirrors. But there's certainly it's on much shakier ground that the plot went to the well, shall we say. I'll forgive any of the remakes for using the well and the island, but when it comes to the sequels and follow-on films, I'm not sure you always have to twist the narrative so that we get to the well and the island, etc., etc. So we'll keep an eye on that as we go through the reviews. I think if they keep going to the well and the island, my hate-o-meter is going to start building up at the bottom of the screen. But I'm going to finish on a positive, which is the fact that I love the inclusion of the character from the first movie. So at the start of the first movie, the very first kill, the friend of the victim obviously freaks out at seeing what happens to her friend, and she ends up in an asylum, albeit I don't think we see her again in the first film. But in this, she comes back, albeit she might be getting played by a different actress here. I'm not sure about that. But reusing that same character and having her be like a vessel for Sadako works extremely well, especially in the mental asylum scenes. So it's time to show you the version of the film that I watched for this. I watched it on my Ring 2 Blu-ray as part of my Ring box set. There's no real need to show this because I showed this when I did my review for Spiral, but given that I paid £35 for this, I might as well get my money's worth and show it off a few times in a few different videos. Why the hell not? But other than that, it's time to get to the bag of terror and show you what sort of score I'm going to give for this movie. So we got 1, 2, 3, 3.5 bloody axes out of 5. I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. I was very close to giving it 4, actually. I just restrained myself because that would mean that it would have the same score as the original from 98, and I'm not sure it quite hits those heights, but it's not far off. It's very, very close to the original film. I don't think a lot of people will agree with me on that, but certainly if I ever watch 98 Ring in the future, which I certainly probably will do, I'll definitely follow it on by watching at least Ring 2. I don't know about Spiral at this point. But anyway, that's the end of my Ring 2 review. I'll be back soon. I think the next one after this, if I go by release date, would be the Korean remake, The Ring Virus. So it's another remake of the original, and I'll see how I get on with that. Until next time, cheerio, bye-bye.